They say the problem with creating a perpetual motion device is figuring out where to hide the batteries. The joke is that you can't break the laws of thermodynamics, so the task is actually futile. And yet when it comes to breaking the laws of thermodynamics in the opposite direction, there is a much more receptive audience. How can I convert excess calories without producing more movement, work, or heat? The answer is categorically that you cannot. But the title of this YouTube is not clickbait. I'm not telling you how to burn calories with less work, but rather how to burn calories with less effort. Effort is in the realm of perception, but I do have empirical, experimental data on my part that backs me up, and I will tell you how to run the experiment yourself later. But first, let's take a trip to the savannas and look at the practice of persistence hunting. Persistence hunting is when a human runs after an animal much faster than themselves, but overcomes them via sheer endurance. The animal knows it is running for its life. It has 100% maximal motivation to run away from the human, and yet it will consistently fail to do so. This is why I don't encourage anybody to work on their motivation. You will not surpass the motivation of an animal that is afraid for its life. So let's instead examine why humans consistently outperform animals in this scenario. The main thing is the human's ability to dissipate heat via exposed skin and sweat glands. Meanwhile, if you go to the gym, it is not unusual to see somebody on the treadmill in sweatpants and a sweatshirt. Sweatpants will increase the degree to which you sweat, but only because it is inhibiting your ability to dissipate heat. We are not attempting to break the laws of thermodynamics here. We want to use them to our advantage. It is inevitable that burning calories produces heat. How are we going to dissipate that heat? This should be an obvious approach, but when it comes to exercise, there exists very one-dimensional undeveloped ideas about motivation and effort. If I said I work with a team and found my job easy until a new team member came on and now my job is much more of a chore, everyone understands that I am putting in more effort, but they won't automatically assume that I or the team are more productive. And yet consider an exercycle class. You have a bunch of people in a room. Each one of those people is producing heat and humidity in the air of that room and making it harder for every other person in that room to dissipate heat. People will come out of that room thinking, I never would have put that much effort in without the group or the instructor there. They aren't wrong in thinking that. They are just wrong in thinking that that is a good thing. They are thinking, I put in more effort, therefore I burnt more calories. That is not necessarily so. Here is the perfect experiment for you to test this out. Weigh yourself while holding your drink bottle before an exercycle class. Pay attention to how many calories you burn during that class. Hopefully the exercycle does this for you, otherwise you might need to use a Fitbit or something. After the class, weigh yourself again, but make sure to hold your water bottle, which will likely be empty at this point. Chances are you will have lost a surprising amount of weight, but the weight you have lost doesn't correlate to the number of calories you have burnt. The weight you have lost is for the most part because you are losing water through either your breath or your sweat as a means to dissipate heat. Now I want you to rerun the experiment later on the same exercycle. Make sure the exercycle is in the coldest, least humid place possible. Make sure to have a fan on you. You could even pre-wet your face and hair after you've weighed yourself so you don't need to sweat as much. Now simply burn the same number of calories that you burnt in that exercycle class and see how much effort is really necessary. What you will find is the amount of effort you perceive yourself to have put in correlates best with the amount of weight you lose during that session. So if you have less need to sweat because you have a fan on you which is dissipating heat for you, you can now burn the same amount of calories with less perceived effort. Or you could burn calories at a higher rate but perceive the same amount of effort. Once you have gone through this process, you will no longer pat yourself on the back for the amount of effort you put in. Pat yourself on the back for avoiding that necessity, and then occasionally pat yourself on the back in those times when effort was unavoidable. Find ways of making things easier for yourself in other ways. Sticking to thermodynamics, if you find an unheated pool to swim in, it will dissipate your heat better. Not just because of the temperature, but because water conducts heat better than air. But we can also think about entertainment or just practical matters of transport. Maybe you want to walk to a destination or whatever.